Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Educated Weirdo. This channel is designed to provide you with innovative information that empowers your intellect. So, please enjoy.
Samuel Little, also known as Samuel McDowell, was born into the world on June 7, 1940 by way of Reynolds, Georgia. Little's mother was an alleged teen prostitute, who abandoned Little in his infancy. Authorities believe Little's mother gave birth to him while she was incarcerated. Little, who was raised by his grandmother in Lorain, Ohio, would never truly fit in. According to most childhood psychologists, our most earliest years in life set the stage for the remainder of our lives. With that said, the psychological traumas of knowing that his mother abandoned him at birth weighed heavily on Little's mind. This sense of abandonment mixed with attachment issues was the building blocks to a foundation of hate toward women. The catalyst came, according to Little, when he was in grade school. Little at this time discovered he had a fetish for female necks. He would recall two separate incidents, one occurring in kindergarten, and the other occurring in third grade. In both incidents Little observed females touching their necks. He went on to explain in detail how one of the young ladies touched her neck while gazing into his eyes. According to Little, she did this to taunt him because she sensed his weakness for necks. This delusional observation fueled a sexual lust for strangulation and dominance. He often fantasized strangling his female classmates and female friends, and struggled daily to fight the urge to act on his impulses. Due to this, Little struggled in high school, and eventually dropped out. Little began committing crimes in his adolescence, beginning with theft. He was placed in juvenile detention, and his crimes worsened from there. Beginning in the 1950s, he moved from state to state and was arrested for fraud, DUI, assault, armed robbery, and rape among other offenses. By 1975, he had been arrested over 25 times in 11 different states. He served a total of 10 years for these various offenses and avoided 2 murder convictions prior to his 2014 conviction. Though he wasn't the brightest man, had enough presence of mind to understand that he could capitalize on a prejudice-broken system. And that's exactly what he did. Most of the victims Little chose were lower-class poverty-stricken prostitutes. Therefore very little to no efforts were made by most law enforcement departments upon their disappearances. This, coupled with inadequate forensic science capabilities during that time, is profusely the reasoning why the majority of his murders went unsolved for so long. In 1982, Little was arrested for shoplifting. It was then that someone recognized the facial similarities between Little and an unsolved murder suspect at large. Little was at this time charged with the murder of a 22-year-old young lady. Sadly, when the case was brought to a grand jury, the lackadaisical evidence wasn't enough to persuade the grand jury to pursue charges. Though Little escaped prosecution, he was suspected of another murder in Florida, and was expeditiously extradited to Florida to possibly stand trial for the murder of Patricia Ann Mount. Patricia was a mentally disabled young lady, who fell victim to Samuel outside of a bar according to witnesses. Her body was found later inside of a field. Samuel was arrested and prosecuted for the heinous rape and murder of Patricia. However, he was acquitted of the murder via a jury of his peers. In 1982, Rosie Hill would fall victim to Samuel. She was strangled and raped outside of a pig pen. Authorities were sure Samuel Little was the actual murderer, but they could not secure enough evidence to prove their theory, and was forced to let Little off the hook. Yet again. In 1984, Little would forcefully kidnap Lori Barros of Florida. Lori Barros, who actually survived the attack. She would later recall the gruesome experience, stating that Little strangled her multiple times, but would always release the pressure around her neck, right before she slightly passed out. Then he would request for her to swallow, then repeat the process all over again once he felt her throat muscles react to her swallowing. He even went as far as attempting to kissing her in the mouth and telling her he loved her. Little ultimately choked her completely unconscious and left her for dead. Lori, thankfully, was able to regain consciousness and contact the authorities. However, authorities were not able to apprehend a suspect, but they did have a description of Little's car. 4 weeks later, Little would strike again. This time, however, his luck would run out when patrolling officers recognized his car. Little was caught red-handed with an unconscious naked female beaten half to death inside of his car. Little was immediately apprehended and charged with attempted murder for both young ladies. Astonishingly, he was able to plead out to a lesser charge of assault, and ultimately only served 2 years out of a 4-year prison sentence. Little prided himself on being a middleweight prize fighter during his heyday. Instead of using these talents to live a lucrative boxing career, he chose to use his abilities to enhance his murders, often beating his victims severely before raping and strangling them to death. Once released, Samuel wasted little time getting back to what he loved best: rape and murder via strangulation. Carol Elford would be his next victim, as well as Guadalupe Apodaca, Audrey Nelson Everett, Zena Jones, and many others unsuspecting female victims. It wasn't until 2014, upon being found guilty of the murders of Elford, Nelson, and Apodaca, was he finally sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, at the age of 74. After serving several years and wanting to be transferred to a new facility, he willingly admitted to 3 more murders and was given consecutive life sentences on top of his current life sentence. Samuel Little would later go on to confess to 93 murders, over a course of multiple interviews. During these interviews, investigators learned that Little was gifted with a photographic memory and could recall grave details of each of his victims' faces and locations. Little was allowed colored pencils and paper, so that he could draw the faces of all his alleged victims. He went on to draw over 50 different individual female portraits. To this day, some of Little's confessions were never matched to exact murders, making him one of the most prolific mass murderers in recorded history.
For more videos like this, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to smash the like button. I am the Educated Weirdo, and as always, much love and respect.